High in a quiet valley, nestled between a thick forest and distant mountains, stood the small village of Kaleri. It was a place few outsiders knew, where life moved at a slow, peaceful pace. Villagers farmed their land, raised their animals, and shared meals, following the same routines as their ancestors for generations. Kaleri was far from the nearest town, connected to the world only by a single dirt road winding through the trees. Fewer than 200 people lived there. Everyone knew each other. Children played freely in the fields, elders told stories under old trees, and every evening, smoke drifted from clay chimneys. Nothing about this tranquil place suggested it would one day become the center of one of the most baffling mysteries ever recorded. For decades, life in Kaleri followed a predictable rhythm. Farmers woke with the sun to tend their crops of maize and millet. Women gathered at the river, their laughter echoing as they washed clothes and collected water. Shepherds guided their flocks into the rolling hills. The nights were serene, filled only with the sound of insects and the distant calls of wild animals. Kaleri was a haven, untouched by the chaos of the modern world. But that peace was not destined to last. In the final weeks before everything changed, some villagers started noticing strange things. A few people reported seeing unfamiliar lights hovering over the forest late at night. Others mentioned hearing a low, faint humming sound that seemed to echo across the valley long after midnight. At first, most people dismissed these as simple rumors, the kind that often circulate in small, isolated communities. But a sense of unease began to creep in. One elderly farmer told a traveling merchant that his animals were acting strangely. His goats refused to go near certain parts of the forest. His chickens grew restless at night, flapping wildly in their coops. Even the village dogs would bark endlessly toward the mountains, as if they could see something no one else could. Still, life went on. About a week before the event, a small group of traders passed through Kaleri on their way to a market in the next region. They stayed for the night, sharing food and stories with the villagers before leaving the next morning. These traders would become some of the last outsiders to ever see the people of Kaleri alive. According to their later statements, everything had seemed perfectly normal. The villagers were as friendly and welcoming as always. Children played along the dusty roads, and farmers were hard at work in their fields. There was absolutely nothing to suggest that something terrible was about to happen. But just a few days later, when the traders returned, they would find a village that had fallen completely silent. No one knows exactly what happened in Kaleri that night. There were no witnesses. The closest neighboring village, nearly 15 kilometers away, reported nothing unusual. There were no sounds of explosions, no gunfire, no violent storms. The night passed as peacefully as any other across the valley. But when the sun rose the next morning, the people of Kaleri were gone. Every single one of them. 2 days later, that same group of traders made their way back along the forest road. They planned to stop in Kaleri again for food and rest. As they approached the village entrance, something felt deeply wrong. There was no movement. No farmers in the fields. No children running along the paths. No smoke rising from the chimneys. The entire village was shrouded in an eerie silence. The traders thought perhaps everyone was working together somewhere nearby. But as they walked deeper into the settlement, the silence grew more unsettling. Doors to homes were left wide open. Cooking fires had long since gone cold. Inside several houses, they found meals sitting uneaten on wooden tables. The scene was a village frozen in time. In one house, a pot of food still hung over a cold fireplace, its contents spoiled. In another, bowls of grain sat untouched, as if someone had just stood up mid-meal and walked away. And outside, they discovered something even stranger. The animals were still there. Cows wandered aimlessly through the empty paths. Goats bleated from inside their pens. Chickens scratched at the dirt beside abandoned homes. If the villagers had decided to leave, why would they abandon their precious livestock? And why would they leave everything so suddenly? Gripped by a growing fear, the traders quickly fled the silent village and rushed to report what they had found to the authorities. Within days, police and volunteers arrived to investigate the mystery. Their first assumption was that the villagers had fled from a disease outbreak, an attack, or some natural disaster. But the evidence told a completely different story. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood. No broken buildings or property damage. All personal belongings were still inside the homes. Clothes were still hanging in wardrobes. Tools were resting right where farmers had left them. It was as if the entire population had simply vanished in the middle of their daily lives. Search teams spent weeks combing the surrounding forests and mountains. They followed every trail that led away from the village. They meticulously examined riverbanks and nearby caves. Hundreds of volunteers scoured the valley for any sign of the missing residents. But they found nothing. There were no footprints leading away from the village. No abandoned carts on the road. No bodies. It was as if 200 people had disappeared from the face of the earth without leaving a single trace behind. As news of the bizarre disappearance spread, journalists and investigators flocked to Kaleri, each hoping to be the one to solve the mystery. Some theorized that the villagers had fled in secret for reasons no one could guess. Others suggested environmental causes, like a sudden release of poisonous gas from the earth or contaminated water, but none of these theories could fully explain the sudden, total, and traceless disappearance of an entire community. Meanwhile, locals from neighboring areas kept talking about the mysterious lights and strange humming sounds that were reported just before the villagers vanished. These stories fueled wild rumors of supernatural forces, secret government experiments, or even an encounter with something not of this world. Authorities officially dismissed these ideas, but they couldn't offer any clear answers of their own. Months turned into years, and the mystery of Kaleri slowly faded from the headlines. But the empty village remained, a haunting monument to its lost people. Travelers who pass through the valley today say the place still feels strangely frozen in time. The houses are slowly decaying, worn down by wind and rain. Wooden fences have collapsed. Weeds and wildflowers grow through the cracks in the abandoned pathways. Inside the old schoolhouse, dusty desks are still lined up in neat rows, with faded chalk marks still visible on the blackboard. A forgotten notebook lies open on one of the desks, its pages filled with a child's handwriting. No one ever returned to claim it. To this day, the people of Kaleri have never been found. No official explanation for their disappearance has ever been confirmed. It remains one of the most unsettling unsolved mysteries of all time. An entire village vanished overnight, leaving behind only their empty homes, their wandering animals, and 1,000 unanswered questions. And somewhere in that quiet, lonely valley, the abandoned houses of Kaleri still stand as silent witnesses to the night an entire village simply disappeared. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as intriguing as we did, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more mysteries from around the world. We'll see you next time.